Belonging is one of our most basic human needs. It is when we surround ourselves with others who may think like us, who may even enjoy doing the same things as us, that we form a circle of belonging. And when many of these circles, strictly, it starts. And in these communities is when real conversations happen. You know, the kind when you go down to your favorite local coffee shop and you're chatting with a strong cup of chai and you walk out of that conversation going, that set my soul on fire. In communities, it's when alternate solutions happen. It's like when Mahatma Gandhi was sitting in his community. In India, communities are sometimes called societies. And he had a small him, and we will fight for independence from Great Britain, but we will do it in a nonviolent way. In a community is when leaders rise. It's like that young man that is now mayor of Stockton, California, Mayor Michael Tubbs. He's a community member. He was down at the coffee shop having conversations. He was down at the barber shop having conversations about the issues in his community and came up with some alternate solutions. And now he's the mayor of and one of the most rising stars in his political parties. You see, in a community is where these different things take place, where the fabric of beings form a society. But when a global pandemic tries to thrust a community apart through no fault of anyone inside the community, it can lead to feelings of alienation and loneliness and disconnectedness. But I'm here to share that in a community is when things tend to rise up. That's when they tend to get together and come out stronger and come out surviving and then thriving. But what it takes to do that is when each community member digs in and connects on a deep and meaningful level. So then they can help everyone rise up. What does it take to connect to that community on that level? For me, it comes from how it was modeled for you. From those that you know and trust and love around you, how did they show you how to connect to your community? My dad showed me the way. See, I was born in the bustling city of Chicago. Lots of things to see. At 8 years old, my parents moved my two sisters and I to the outskirts of Charlotte, North Carolina. We moved there because my parents became small business owners. They owned a convenience store, and the outside of it was a gas station. And on the side of it was a 10-room hotel. Something similar to what you and I would think of as an extended stay hotel. The people that lived there, the tenants, were sometimes disenfranchised, sometimes disabled, but they were a tight-knit community. You see, I'm going to age myself a little bit because when I was growing up, there was no internet. There were no mobile phones. There were no computers. The way you connected was with each other. You knew your value. You knew your worth. And these folks, those tenants, they were there for one another. They were the community. And here we come in, a family of 5 from a big city. We must have looked like fish out of water to them because we had different culture, different holidays. They probably didn't know what to make of us. And we, in turn, didn't know where our threads were to weave them in the community. A couple years go by. I must have been 11 years old. I was sitting in the store with my dad one fine day. And a gentleman walked into the store and he said, "Mr. Shaw," that's my dad. He said, "I'm not going to be able to pay the rent this week. And I'm not even going to be able to pay the rent next week. And I was paid real good, tight attention to what my dad was going to say, because I had my own experiences of where I fit in the community. I had my own experiences on the school bus and in the schoolyard and in the playground. And I was kind of looking for the way, where was my spot? Where was my community? So I was paying real close attention to what my dad was saying. And I saw my dad look to the side where there was a notebook, a red notebook he kept, of people that would walk into the store and ask for a place to stay in that hotel. Because that kind of extended stay type of hotel was the only kind of place around in a 30 or 50 mile vicinity. And instead of my dad reaching for that red notebook and saying, oh, I have a list of people here that want a room at that hotel, he instead reached out his hand and said, we're going to help you in any way that we can. I learned a very important lesson that day. I learned that in order to give to in order to connect to a community, you must be able to give to the community. Because when you give, it makes and affects change. When you give to a community, it makes and affects change. So as we fast forward back to the situation, the current day that we're in, and the pandemic that we're facing, there are three ways that we can come together, that we can lend a hand for our communities to thrive and survive. The first thing is neighbors helping neighbors. Now, when we reach out and help one another, it creates a domino effect where others help others. The second place is small businesses opening their doors to the community. Because when that happens, they will see that investment come back 10 times richer. And the third place is big businesses. Those that have 500 or more employees must reach out and form hyper-local synergies with their communities. Now, neighbors like help us if we didn't talk about Mom, Marina Staples. Marina Staples has a daughter named Regina Randall, who is a nurse at Grady Hospital here in Atlanta, Georgia. Regina was in the front lines of this pandemic when it first started, amongst the chaos and the stress every day, didn't know what was happening. And her mom would listen and try to offer her words of advice. Marina knew that she had to lend a helping hand. Marina is a retiree on a fixed. One of her favorite passions in life is baking. She bought all the supplies and baked 150 individual-sized cake and delivered them to the hospital so that hospitals and doctors and staff and nurses could have a little bit of positivity in their day. Small businesses. Well, we have to talk about the restaurants. The restaurants that couldn't open because it was not safe to have people inside of them, but they still opened the doors to their community. They still opened the doors to furlough and those that needed a meal. Let's talk about Big Business Delta. Here, headquartered right here in Atlanta. They saw a need in their hyperlocal communities where their hospitals needed protective gear. They're running out, and they stepped in to provide that, as well as giving money and grants to nonprofits so they can help the ones in the front lines of the pandemic. You see, it takes all of us to lend a hand to make a community come together. But the most important factor in this is you. See, it's you. How do you dig deep and connect to the community when it needs you the most? Because you see, when you stand true, when you stand in your most authentic, genuine, original power of yourself, you then are able to give. And when you can give, you'll see, as the great and wise Oprah Winfrey says, what you do, what you say, and the fact that you're a being matters. And when you stand true in that, is when you can give to the community. And when you give, it can and will affect positive change, not only for your community, but for our country and for the world. Thank you.